The Survivors is brought to you by our friends at Calmerry. This podcast mentions suicide, mental illness, grief, and loss, and may be triggering for some listeners. So please take care of your well-being by pausing or skipping any sections that feel uncomfortable to you. And if you or someone you know is struggling, please call 988 for support. Hey friends, we are in the middle of what's already begun as a beautiful conversation with our very first guest of all time here on The Survivors. We have got someone very special to join our conversation today. This is Janine Ellenberger. She is a seasoned physician and entrepreneur, a health executive with over 20 years of experience in digital health, clinical practice, and leadership. She is also the co-founder of Behavidence. It's a digital phenotyping company for mental health conditions. She is the Chief Medical Officer of Calmerry. She plays a pivotal role in transforming mental health care through innovation, expanding services through strategic partnerships, and introducing additional revenue streams. She's also responsible for world-class virtual therapy training programs and improving therapist-client matching to ensure personalized care for every individual. And this remarkable human being is here to join our conversation on The Survivors. We have already talked at length about some of the issues that we're going to continue on in this podcast to dig into. Janine, it's a pleasure to have you.
Yes, absolute pleasure. So honored.
Lisa and Gretchen, it's my honor to be here today with both of you. And having learned your journeys as to how you got to this podcast, I am excited and really looking forward to our conversation today. Thank you.
So I wanted to find out from you. I know you're a parent, right?
I am.
And as a parent, how do you navigate mental health with your kids?
That's a very pertinent question to me, Gretchen. I have 3 children. My eldest has autism. And as I was explaining earlier to you, as I was reading and preparing for this podcast today, I started looking at the warning signs of suicide, and it sort of hit me like a wet fish in the face. You know, my son right now ticks all of these boxes, and it's frightening because this has been an ongoing conversation with him. And I've actually realized I've made some mistakes, to be honest with you, because when I was looking at, how should you respond? You should not say things like you're overreacting, or just be positive, or everything's going to be okay, because I'm inclined to always say, oh, everything's going to be okay. Don't you worry. We'll get through this. And some of the things that I've started practicing in the last sort of week or two is saying things like, you're not alone. I'm here to listen. I'm here to support. Tell me, not dismissing where
It's
he's
hard.
at.
It's so
hard
as a parent. I have 2 daughters. We were chatting about this offline. I have 2 daughters who have both had challenges with mental illness and some depression and anxiety. And, we're not given all the answers as parents. As soon as we're handed these little children, we're looked at as the ones who will have all the answers and the ones who can guide and who can educate and who can support. And we're learning from scratch as we go too. I mean, I can look back at my own parenting journey and missing signs that my daughter had anxiety, thinking they were just kind of, angsty teenage girl issues. And it's hard. We're not all knowing. It's difficult.
So my other question would be is when you're talking to him, do you ask more probing questions, like questions that you hope you'll get an answer for?
I do. I ask questions like, what do you think could be contributing to the way you feel right now? How do you think we can solve this? But what's interesting, when you get to a person, I don't know if this is your experience, but when you get to that point, when I say, how can we remedy this? Let's put a plan together. There's this sense of absolute hopelessness and helplessness. I can't. Nothing will make a difference. Nothing will work. And that's the hard part, I think, really. And then you combine this with, as we said, that young brain, where there's a lot of impulsivity, and you just hope that somehow you're going to always be there so we can cross the hump and get to the other side where that attempt doesn't happen.
For me, because I'm older, right? Like when I did my suicide attempt, I was 59 and a half. I'm a complete extrovert. So when people saw me on the outside, I looked completely fine. Right? I was showing up to work every day. I was, helping my customers. I was doing things at home. But one of the things I found as I was writing my book that people didn't do, so they didn't ask me more probing questions, right? They saw me for what I was at face value. I wish now that they would have asked more probing questions, because they would all ask me, like, so how you doing? I'd be like, oh, I'm living the dream. In the back of my head, I'm like, I'm not living the dream. I am just done. I'm like tapped out. And so like a more open-ended question of like, okay, I mean, it's something I would have had to answer a little bit more truthfully. And I think those are things that we need to incorporate with these conversations is more,
Yeah. But you know what it is? I think people are afraid. People want desperately to be able to help and to support. But I think people are terrified at their core. What do I do when the person I'm asking actually comes back to me and says, I'm struggling, I don't want to live, I'm having a hard time? Then it's like, well, where do you go? Especially if you're not a trained clinician or a counselor or have the background to help. So, I mean, I think this is a perfect place to jump straight into the conversation of what should friends or colleagues, if you're at work, be aware of when it comes to recognizing the signs of distress, whether it's your child at home or it's a colleague at work, things that could ultimately lead to suicidal ideation. What should we all be looking for?
I agree with you 100%. And that needs to extend from family members to friends, to the teachers, to your colleagues at work. And there's a QPR, question, persuade, refer.
Mm-hmm.
So ask the deep probing questions and then see if you can get a little bit more insight to persuade them to go and seek the help that is desperately needed. I don't think you can stop a suicide attempt, but that's almost just delaying it, as opposed to getting them to refer to a place where there is help and making that help accessible. And I think that's where the new digital age comes in, because
absolutely,
I know was going through my son when we were younger. You go and have an incident, and then you call the psychologist or the psychiatrist, and they'll see you in 6 weeks' time. And you still have to deal with that for 6 weeks. And you can call crisis line. I mean, you will get quicker access, but still you want to have access to somebody within the next 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You want to feel like there's that lifeline at the end and there's hope, because what that brings is hope.
Yeah.
And hope
exactly.
is so important. So I think having access to digital tools, apps, is so important now, because it can make a quick difference.
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%. So like the day after I called, the day that I called 988, that the very next call was to get a therapist, and they were able to see me that the next day.
Well, that's excellent.
But, Lisa and I were joking earlier, is that when I met my therapist, like I had to speed date my therapist, right? Like the first one didn't work out so well. By the time number 3 came around, we're good. Been doing it for 2 years. But, you're right. Access is a big thing. And now, we're fortunate enough that we have those digital tools where we didn't have that, 20 years ago.
Mm. So or even 10 years ago. Yeah.
One of the reasons I sort of co-founded Behavidence and also Calmerry was precisely because of that. To get my son's diagnosis, I joke not when I say it took 14 psychologists and 9 psychiatrists. And it was hit and miss, hit and miss, hit and miss. And for him to find the person that he felt comfortable enough speaking to, and then also just to get the right diagnosis.
Yeah, there's so many hoops. There's so many moving parts that people just don't realize. It's not as simple as just reaching out for help. That's a big part of it. That's certainly where it all starts and where it all has to start. But then there's so many unfortunate barriers that are in place, especially nowadays, especially you think about what was happening during the pandemic and how the entire world went from being an in-person culture, a face-to-face culture, to all of a sudden, a Zoom culture or a screen culture. And you couldn't, and you couldn't find a therapist who could take you to save your life. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, they needed to save your life and you couldn't access them. It is just, it is beautiful to see how technology can play in our favor now with platforms like Calmerry and others who are offering kind of these a la carte services to people who either A, don't have healthcare coverage that enables them to support their mental health, or they can't find someone, maybe in their local area. It just, I think, has broadened the scope of what people can use.
And the matching you to a therapist. That I think you hit so many important points there, the insurance aspects of it. So first you have to go and find somebody in your network, in your area that is able to see you. That requires executive self-management and desire, which, and a lot of time people in a state like this do not have that. They don't have that ability to go and do the research, and so you generally need somebody to help you do that. The fact that you can now log on to, for example, Calmerry and immediately get matched with a therapist, and that therapist will text you back. So you might not immediately get that video call, but at least you have that connection. And you can lead with, I'm in a dark space right now. And that therapist will come back and say, right, let's address this and let's put you on, or let's go here, or help guide you. So be that executive management for you, which is, I think, so deeply powerful in helping prevent suicide on a large scale.
100%. Like in the early days, like I would text my therapist like 20 times a day because I just had like this overflow of emotions going on. And like, yes, I could have called 988 back, but I had a therapist, right? And I just have to plug the 988 because they were so compassionate. I'm truly alive today because of that. But I love the digital tools that I have at my disposal now that I didn't know about prior to that attempt, right? I have like calming applications. I have, journaling applications, things that help me take stuff that's in here and give it to somebody else to deal with. Like I'm still dealing with it, but it's not sitting up here anymore.
Take a step to your mental well-being with Calmerry, trusted online therapy platform that supports you through life's challenges. Connect with licensed therapists and reap the benefits of traditional therapy enhanced with digital tools whenever you need it. Visit calmerry.com to get started.
But it's you're purging it. It's like purging a radiator. There's that extreme buildup, and oftentimes people just don't know what to do with that massive overflow of emotion, and that's why things like mindfulness practices and even, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 guiding, re-regulation exercises and journals.
And journaling,
they're also helpful.
Journaling is so powerful as well because you are taking it out of your head and you're seeing it there. And I think journaling, Calmerry has a journaling aspect to the app as well. It's something I actually learned through my daughter, because I've journaled through my life, but she journals in a very dedicated fashion every single day. She said to my husband the other day, he was ranting off about something. It's like, Dad, you would really benefit from journaling. Now, my husband's nearly 60. And he looked at her and said, what? But because he wants to please his daughter, he's now taken this to heart and has got himself a journal. I think
it's never too late is what
that
says. It's funny that you should say that because so I'm 56 years old. My mother is 86 years old. Yeah. And my mother, so part of my story of being a suicide loss survivor, one of the losses that I've experienced was the loss of my father. And my father passed away when I was 10 years old. But the story that I was told was that that he died of a heart attack. My mother chose in that moment to keep the secret of his suicide from me, because as a 10-year-old child, I was learning that my father had taken his life. At 10 years old, it would have derailed me. Knowing that he was gone was bad enough. She wanted to shield me from that. So she held that secret for 35 years. My mother, there was no therapist involved. My mother didn't share it with a living soul. That, ouch is one word for it. And ultimately, it has, of course, come out about 10 years ago, which has been a beautiful thing because now we talk about it very freely and openly. We've been in kind of almost an 11-year-long extended conversation about it, which has been beautiful. But the point I'm trying to make is that I started seeing a therapist again after a 30-year break. And it's been the most wonderful experience the most wonderful gift I've given myself in a very, very long time. And now my mother is actually encouraged to start potentially seeing my therapist. She has had the opportunity to meet my therapist. And now she's considering, for the very first time in her life at the age of 86, being able to talk to someone who's like her own dedicated mental health provider to offload all of those things that maybe she and I haven't gotten around to talking about yet, or aspects of it that maybe a therapist could flesh out. So there's just never too late.
It's never too late, and well done. My dad is close to 80. And he has cancer, and he's getting to that point where, and he's suffered from depression. I come from a long family history of mental health conditions. My dad was depressed from a very, very young age. And he was always in hospital for depression. He was always being treated for depression. The most amazing man, I have to tell you. Delightful, gentle character. At the age of 78, he's now started finally to go for therapy. And he's so much happier. Just like that. So, but it's taken him a very long time. So that resistance is often there. Even though people are in a dark space, even though they are struggling, there's still the stigma attached to therapy and going for therapy and getting yourself to therapy, which I think having these apps or digital tools or teletherapy available through an app can help sort of alleviate it a little bit, because you can do it all in the privacy of your own home if you need to.
You can. And you look no further than having an option to text. I mean, I'm on the Trevor Lifeline, which is a traditional pick up the phone and call and speak to someone. We also have a texting platform, much like the crisis text line, that just gives people options. It's just a little bit of a buffer that someone who may not be feeling fully comfortable sitting down person to person, face to face yet, gives them another option. And, I think, sure, with technology, we all know that, where there is so much good, there is also so much that's unfortunately negative about it. But what we're talking about right now, this is one of the absolute most positive benefits of having the technology that we have, because it caters to everybody, whatever their unique needs may be. It allows someone to find what works for them, and to kind of cultivate an environment that makes them want to reach out for help and want to share what's going on
and get that support very quickly.
I just think, like, in today's world, that, having that convenience is super helpful to people, right? Like, everything is crazy right now.
So crazy.
When I mean
that's
crazy,
an understatement.
It's just crazy. But having that at their disposal, whether they're at work, they're at home, you're on a bus, you're walking, you're jogging, having that available to you is so amazing. And I love the fact that, we have programs like Calmerry. We have, mindfulness apps and things like that. And there's not one kind of therapy that fixes everybody, right? There's so many different therapies out there. I mean, I've dabbled in a few. Like, I do tapping therapy too when I'm super stressed out or anxious. I've done some energy therapy. Just know that there's different kinds of therapies, because you may not feel comfortable doing person to person. I get it. It was hard for me too.
Yeah, it's hard for a lot of people, but we have options.
So many options out there. And my hope is that we're able to save people's lives, because people, I just want them to know that you're enough and you're wanted and you're needed in this world. And no matter what the demons in your head are saying, they're not true. And that's something I had to learn for myself. I'm 2.5 years into therapy now, and I still go to therapy like twice a month.
So important, because one can slip back into those. I tell my son he's got ants in his head, automated negative thoughts. Mm-hmm. And these ants just keep, and you know what ants are like. They are hyper energetic. They go, and they expand their population. So he's got all these ants just going round and round and round in his head. And sometimes you have to squash those ants. Yeah. It's the only way to get your space and your brain back. You have to squash the ants. And it's so difficult because they're automated. Those negative thoughts feed on each other. And exactly what you said, Gretchen, there are different therapies that work for different people. Some people are receptive to CBT, some need DBT, some need to start with some hypnosis before, or start with the tapping just to regulate the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems before you then move on into, and finding that pathway and finding that companion therapist who can help guide you through it is invaluable and so important. So you have that initial crisis management, and then you have the path going forward where you build your little support system around you, and you have different things for different times.
Mm-hmm. I have my little bubble. I love it. And I don't want to get rid of my bubble.
Never.
It's funny. It's funny but sad at the same time. So in the first time in 45 years, I actually don't have health insurance. Because it's expensive, right? You go out on your own. Health insurance is expensive. So, having resources available like your phone or things like that, a lot of programs have sliding scale, and being able to see that. But there's a ton of free stuff out there too. And taking the time to talk to your friends, right? Like I do a Sunday check-in with all my friends, whether they're introverts or extroverts or whatever. I check in with my people. That connection helps. And, once again, asking probing questions. Like I ask them a question that I know they have to respond to.
That's an art.
And I love the Sunday check-in because you always have to put that in your calendar. Mm-hmm. It's something that's written down. It's an appointment. You can't miss it. And you probably find that the Sunday check-in serves you just as much as it serves then, because you're giving. And when you give, your dopamine and serotonin are elevated and you feel better. And it's so important to the healing process.
And, when I think of like workplaces right now, because like I said, the world's a scary place right now. Like, what can workplaces do help assist their employees?
I think a lot of workspaces are looking at these EAP programs, employee assistance programs, particularly for the mental health space, and offering them for free, or to join, for example, a company like Calmerry and give them 2 to 3 sessions over the course of a year that they would have access to when they are feeling that they need it. And I think a lot of companies are doing that now because they're realizing that if their employees' mental wellness is in a good space, the company's productivity is so much better. So for them, it serves the bottom line, but actually it does serve the whole employee morale and well-being. And I think it's incredibly important for employees to have access to that in the workplace, because work is stressful and it's a dog-eat-dog world out there right now. So people feel vulnerable at work. They don't know if they have security in their job. So if you have any issues, that just compounds it. If you look at the causes of why do people commit suicide, you've got the biological or medical causes, you've got the underlying conditions like bipolar, depression, PTSD, schizophrenia, whatever. And then you have the environment and social. And work is a huge, we spend so much time at work, if not more. I think the way Americans work, we probably spend 2/3 of our time working.
Probably right.
Yeah. And so I think employee benefits or assistance programs is incredibly important. And then I think more than that as well, some education from HR to everybody. Like you can be somebody that assists with that QPR, question, persuade, refer. If your friend looks, if you notice somebody withdrawing, if you notice somebody, And Gretchen, I hear you about being an extrovert, because I know people, and actually my son is an extrovert when he wants to be, and people are like, he's just great. He's the life and soul of the party. But when they withdraw, that dissociation and detachment, being aware, being alert, and then being interested and caring enough to go and ask those probing questions, and then persuading them to go and seek help, and knowing where to refer them. 988, as you said, or to the EAP program is, and if we all just had this knowledge, the world would be so much better. Oh, so much better.
So I do have a question about the EAP program, because I've heard this a couple of times on shit that goes on in our heads, is that employees are afraid to contact the EAPs because they don't want their employers to know.
They don't know. They're not supposed to know.
Confidential.
Okay. All right.
It is confidential. And so they will buy a book of vouchers, for example, just to put it in a very simple, understandable way. And the company will get 100 vouchers, and that will give a free therapy session to each person. And basically they'll just hand out the vouchers to whoever needs it, but it will come through the fact that you can go and actually pull a voucher yourself without anybody knowing that it was you that pulled it. So it's a box of vouchers that you just go and pull one out. It's not quite as simple as that, but it is meant to be as private and
that's great to know.
Incognito. Yes.
Yeah.
So nobody knows.
Good. That's good to know.
But actually, even let's take it one step back. And I know I'm not allowed to curse on this show.
No,
you
can curse all you want.
We encourage it.
I'm the only one that's been...
As long as it's not Gretchen. I let anyone else curse.
Why the hell, there
she is.
They care if they have it. They should be there to support. It should not affect that employee's employment status at all. We all go through shit sometimes. And
That's right.
We need to be supported. Right. And we're entitled to that support.
1,000%. So this is actually going to be a 2-part episode. So we have more to the story coming up next week. Thanks for joining us on The Survivors. Remember, no matter how tough things feel, you are enough, and the world needs you just the way you are. You're not alone in this journey. There's a community here, and every step forward counts. We're so grateful you took the time to listen, and we hope you'll take one day at a time. Just know there's always more light ahead.
Thanks for being here, friends. Just remember, help is out there in so many different places. So if you or someone you know is struggling, please call 988 and a trained crisis counselor like me will be there to help. You can also find an inclusive and comprehensive directory of mental health resources, tools, and content at thehelphub.co. Just remember that help is always just a call or a click away. We'll catch you next week. In the meantime, keep surviving.